Ranger Liam had been working at Willow Creek National Park for almost 10 years. Every day felt the same, walking along forest trails, checking signs, making sure visitors were safe, and keeping an eye on the animals. He loved the park because it was quiet, peaceful, and full of life. The tall trees, the singing birds, and the soft rustle of leaves made every day feel calm. But that morning, something unusual caught his attention. He was walking along the path that led to the lake when he noticed a strange movement on the water. At first, he thought it was just the wind. The lake usually shimmered in the sunlight, and small ripples formed when the wind blew. But this time, the water was moving differently. Small bubbles were rising from the center of the lake. They were not like normal bubbles from fish or air pockets. They were too big, too regular, and they seemed to glow faintly under the morning light. Liam stopped and leaned over the wooden railing of the observation deck. He frowned and watched closely. Each bubble rose slowly to the surface and popped silently, leaving the water smooth and still before the next one appeared. The bubbles were not random. They followed a pattern, forming lines that moved across the lake as if something under the water was organizing them. He pulled out his radio and spoke to the park office. "This is Ranger Liam. You need to send someone. There's something strange happening at Willow Creek Lake. It's not normal. Bubbles, glowing bubbles, in the center of the water. I don't know what it is." There was a short pause on the other end before a calm voice replied. "Copy that, Liam. Describe what you see in detail. Stay safe and keep an eye on it. Don't let visitors get too close." Liam looked around. A few early morning visitors were already approaching the lake, curious about the water. He waved his hand and shouted, "Please stay back. Don't go near the water. Something unusual is happening." The visitors nodded, keeping their distance. Some took pictures with their phones, their eyes wide with curiosity and concern. Liam felt a mix of excitement and worry. He had never seen anything like this before. The lake had always been quiet and calm, never mysterious or dangerous. He decided to walk along the shore, looking for the source of the bubbles. The water lapped gently against the rocks and sand, but the bubbles continued to rise steadily from a single point near the middle of the lake. Liam noticed that the bubbles seemed to glow slightly, changing color as they moved, sometimes pale blue, sometimes green, sometimes almost gold. He crouched and carefully collected a small amount of water in a portable container from the edge of the lake. He had a basic testing kit with him. He ran a few tests: temperature, pH, oxygen levels. Everything seemed normal. The water was clean, fresh, and safe. Nothing explained the strange bubbles. While he worked, Liam remembered some stories he had heard as a child. People in nearby towns used to talk about the hidden caves of Willow Creek. They said that long ago, there were tunnels beneath the lake where water flowed from underground rivers. Most people thought it was just a legend, a story to scare children. But Liam wondered if the bubbles were connected to something hidden below the lake bed. He decided to call Dr. Mara, a scientist who specialized in unusual natural phenomena. "Dr. Mara, this is Liam from Willow Creek Park. You need to see this lake. There are bubbles, glowing bubbles, rising in a strange pattern. I think it might be linked to something underground," he said, his voice tense with curiosity. Dr. Mara replied quickly, "I will gather my team and be there as soon as possible. Keep everyone safe. Do not go near the lake." Liam hung up and watched the lake again. The pattern of the bubbles was becoming more organized. They formed circles, then lines, then shifted into shapes he could not recognize. It looked almost like the lake itself was alive, sending a signal in its own language. He shivered slightly, unsure whether to feel excited or afraid. By mid-morning, Dr. Mara arrived with 2 assistants, all carrying equipment. They wore protective gloves and masks, and they set up portable testing machines on the shore. Liam explained what he had seen, and Dr. Mara nodded, her eyes wide with interest. "This is extraordinary," she said. "I have studied many lakes and rivers, but I have never seen bubbles like this. The patterns suggest a form of organized activity. It might be geological, it might be biological, or it could be something entirely new. We need to study it carefully. They began taking water samples, measuring the depth and temperature at different points, and using sonar to map the lakebed. Liam watched them work, feeling a mix of pride and unease. He had discovered something important, something no one had seen before. But there was a feeling in the pit of his stomach that this discovery might not be entirely safe. As the morning passed, more visitors gathered, keeping their distance as instructed. Rumors spread quickly. Some thought it was a rare natural phenomenon. Others whispered about mysterious creatures or hidden treasures. Liam tried to keep control, reminding everyone to stay back and follow the safety signs. Around noon, one of the scientists pointed to the center of the lake. "Look at that," she said. "The bubbles are forming a pattern again. It almost looks like they are moving toward a single point. Something is down there, I am sure of it." Liam stared at the water, feeling a mixture of fear and fascination. The lake that had always been calm and peaceful now seemed alive and secretive. The bubbles continued to rise, glowing softly under the sun, and he could not take his eyes off them. By the end of the day, the team had collected enough data to plan further investigation. They decided that the lake might need to be drained partially to understand what was happening below. Liam agreed reluctantly. He had spent years protecting the lake, and the thought of changing it made him uneasy. But he knew it was the right decision. As he packed his equipment and prepared to leave for the night, Liam looked at the lake one last time. The bubbles were still rising, as if waiting for something. The water shimmered under the setting sun, mysterious and inviting. He had never felt so connected to a place in his life. But he also knew that this was only the beginning. Something was hiding beneath Willow Creek Lake. Something old, something unknown, and perhaps something dangerous. And tomorrow, the real work would begin. The next morning, Willow Creek National Park was quieter than usual. Most visitors had left after Ranger Liam warned them about the strange bubbles. Only the scientists, park staff, and a few officials remained. Liam arrived early, carrying his notebook and equipment. He felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. The lake had changed overnight. The bubbles were still there, rising in the same mysterious pattern, but now the glow seemed brighter, almost as if the lake was alive. Dr. Mara was already at the edge of the lake with her team. She looked up when Liam approached and waved him over. "Good morning, Liam. Did the lake change while you were gone?" she asked. "Yes," Liam said. "The bubbles are bigger now. They rise faster, and the shapes are more complicated. I have never seen anything like this in all my years here." Dr. Mara nodded, her eyes focused. "We need to understand what is causing it before we do anything else. I want full data on temperature, water composition, and depth. Also, we should use sonar equipment to map the lakebed. Something is beneath the water, and I want to know what it is." Liam and the scientists set up their equipment along the shore. They measured water samples at different points, noting temperature, oxygen levels, and mineral content. Everything seemed normal. There were no signs of pollution, no harmful bacteria, nothing unusual that could explain the strange bubbles. One of the assistants, a young scientist named Nora, set up a small drone with a camera to fly above the lake. The drone hovered quietly, giving a clear view of the water. The bubbles continued to rise in a line from the middle of the lake, forming a strange spiral pattern that no one could explain. "This is incredible," Nora said, watching the screen. "The bubbles are not random. They follow a shape that changes slowly over time. Look at that spiral. It almost looks like something is moving below the surface, directing the bubbles." Liam felt a shiver run down his spine. He had spent years watching this lake, and he had never seen anything even close to this. He looked at Dr. Mara. "Do you think it could be some kind of creature?" he asked. Dr. Mara shook her head. "I do not think it is a creature, not in the usual sense. There is no sign of life forms big enough to create this. I think it may be geological, maybe something buried under the lakebed that releases gas. But the pattern, it seems too organized for a natural process. I have never seen anything like this." As they spoke, a diver prepared to go into the lake. His name was Marco, and he was experienced with underwater caves and deep lake dives. "I will check the source of the bubbles from below," he said. "I have full safety gear and communication equipment. I will stay within range and report everything I see." Liam watched Marco slip into the water. The lake felt colder and darker than usual near the center. The bubbles surrounded him, rising quickly and forming rings around his movements. He could barely see the bottom, but the sonar device on his suit showed some strange shapes. Large, hollow structures, jagged and curved, appeared beneath the mud. They did not look natural. After a few minutes, Marco surfaced quickly, gasping. "Something is down there," he said. "I don't know what it is, but the shapes, they are too precise to be natural. I felt a pull, like the water was trying to hold me down. I am not joking. There is something alive, or at least something powerful, under the lake." Liam felt a knot in his stomach. He had suspected something unusual, but he had never imagined this. Dr. Mara looked thoughtful. "If it is alive, it is unlike anything we know. If it is not alive, it may be some ancient structure, something built by someone long ago. Either way, we need to study it carefully. I recommend draining part of the lake to see it properly." The idea of draining the lake worried Liam. The lake was home to fish, frogs, birds, and plants. Changing it could disrupt the ecosystem. But he knew it might be the only way to understand the mystery. "How much of the lake would you drain?" he asked. Dr. Mara pointed to the center. "We need to lower the water level enough to expose the structures in the middle. Just enough to study them safely. The rest can stay intact." As the team discussed the plan, the bubbles began to move faster. They formed circles, then lines, then strange shapes. Liam noticed that the colors of the bubbles changed too, from pale blue to green and sometimes golden yellow. The glow made it look as if the lake was alive, communicating in a language they could not understand. By midday, the park authorities arrived to oversee the operation. They were serious and cautious, making sure no one got too close. Liam guided them to a safe distance while the scientists continued their work. Everyone agreed that safety was the first priority. The divers tried again, this time with more equipment. Marco went back into the water, this time carrying a small camera. The images he sent back were confusing. Large, hollow tubes rose from the lakebed, some straight and some twisted. They looked as if they were carved or shaped intentionally. Some seemed to reach deep underground. The divers could not go near them without risking their lives. Dr. Mara took notes and photographs, her excitement growing despite the danger. "Whatever this is, it is not just a geological formation. The shapes are deliberate. Someone or something must have created them." Liam felt a chill. He had always believed the park was full of natural beauty and history, but he never imagined there could be something this ancient and unknown hiding beneath the lake. As the sun began to set, the team stopped work for the day. The bubbles continued to rise, glowing softly under the fading light. The lake was calm on the surface, but underneath, it was full of secrets. Liam stood at the edge, watching, and wondered what the next day would bring. He knew one thing for certain: the lake had changed forever. The bubbles were only the beginning. Whatever was below the water, it was waiting. And Liam could feel it, deep in his bones, that the lake was not done revealing its mysteries. That night, as Liam walked back to his cabin, he kept looking over his shoulder at the dark lake. The glow of the bubbles could still be seen faintly in the moonlight. He could not sleep, thinking about what was under the water. He wondered if anyone would ever understand it fully, or if it was something humans were never meant to see. The morning was cold and quiet at Willow Creek National Park. A thin mist hung over the surface of the lake, making the glowing bubbles look even more mysterious. Ranger Liam arrived early, carrying his notebook and a small flashlight. The park staff and the scientists were already there, preparing for a task that had never been done before, partially draining the lake. Dr. Mara and her team had planned everything carefully. Heavy pumps were set up along the shore to move the water into temporary storage tanks. Safety barriers were placed to keep everyone at a safe distance. Liam checked the equipment one last time, making sure it was all secure. He had helped with emergencies before, but this felt different. This was not just about rescuing someone or fixing a broken fence. They were dealing with something unknown and possibly dangerous. Dr. Mara approached Liam, holding her tablet. Liam, the plan is simple. We drain the lake slowly, section by section, to expose the center. We want to see what is causing the bubbles without damaging the ecosystem too much. We will monitor everything closely. Liam nodded. I understand. I just hope whatever is down there does not react badly to this. The bubbles, they feel alive, almost like the lake is watching us. Dr. Mara smiled slightly, but her eyes were serious. That is exactly what makes this exciting and dangerous. We need to see what is below the surface. Let's start. The pumps roared to life, and water began to flow out of the lake. Slowly, the level dropped, and the lake bed started to appear. The bubbling continued, but now the bubbles formed strange shapes on the exposed water. They twisted and swirled, as if guiding the water away from something. Liam watched carefully, feeling both awe and fear. As the morning passed, more of the lake bed became visible. The mud was thick and dark, and large rocks jutted out. Then the first strange structure appeared. It was hollow, tall, and curved, like a giant tube rising from the ground. Liam walked closer, careful not to step into the thick mud. He had never seen anything like it. The structure looked almost carved, with smooth sides and sharp edges. Dr. Mara took photographs and measurements. These are not natural, she said. Look at the patterns. Some curves are perfect, like someone designed them. Others are irregular, but deliberate. Whoever, or whatever, made this had a purpose. More tubes appeared as the water receded. Some were straight and tall, piercing the lakebed like towers. Others twisted and turned, connecting to each other like tunnels. Liam felt a shiver run down his spine. The lake had hidden these structures for centuries, and now they were finally revealing themselves. The bubbles were still rising, but now they seemed to avoid the exposed structures. They formed rings around the bases of the tubes and then floated into the air, disappearing into the mist. Liam could not understand their behavior. It was as if the bubbles were alive, protecting the tubes from the outside world. Dr. Mara's assistant, Nora, pointed to a large tube in the center. That one is different, she said. It is bigger, taller, and the entrance is wider. It goes deep underground. We should be careful around it. The bubbles are more active near this one. Liam nodded. He felt a mix of curiosity and caution. Do we know what is inside? He asked. Dr. Mara shook her head. Not yet. But it is clear that this is the source of the bubbles. Whatever is inside is releasing gas into the lake, causing the strange patterns. It could be natural, or it could be something ancient and intelligent. We need to study it without disturbing it too much. They continued draining the lake slowly. As more of the structures were revealed, the ground beneath them trembled slightly. The mist above the lake thickened, and the glow of the bubbles became stronger. Liam felt a cold sensation in his chest, like the lake was warning them to stop. But he knew they could not turn back now. By afternoon, the center of the lake was almost fully exposed. The largest tube, which Dr. Mara called the main structure, towered over everything else. It was hollow and dark inside, and faint shadows moved within. The bubbles rose from the edges of the tube, forming a glowing ring around it. Liam stepped closer, keeping a safe distance. He felt as if the lake itself was alive, watching his every move. Dr. Mara and her team set up cameras and sensors around the tube. They wanted to measure the gas, the temperature, and any vibrations from below. Liam helped place the equipment, careful not to disturb the ground. He looked down at the mud and rocks and wondered how long this had been hidden. Centuries? Thousands of years? No one knew. Suddenly, a soft rumble echoed from the center of the tube. Liam froze. The ground beneath his feet shook slightly, and the mist above the lake swirled. The bubbles became brighter and moved faster, forming a spiral pattern around the main structure. It was as if the lake was alive, reacting to their presence. "Stay calm," Dr. Mara said, her voice steady but tense. "The rumble is probably from gas escaping. It is not dangerous if we keep our distance. But we must watch carefully." Liam nodded, feeling his heart race. He had seen strange things before, but nothing like this. The lake was no longer just a body of water. It was a hidden world, full of secrets, waiting to be discovered. As the sun began to set, the team stopped draining the lake for the day. They had revealed most of the structures, but the main tube remained a mystery. Liam looked at the glowing bubbles and the hollow tube, feeling a sense of wonder and fear. Whatever was inside had been hidden for centuries, and now they were close enough to see it. That night, Liam stayed near the lake, watching the mist and bubbles in the moonlight. The glow reflected on his face, and he could not stop thinking about the day's discoveries. The lake had revealed part of its secret, but there was still much more hidden below. He knew that tomorrow would bring even more revelations, and perhaps even danger. The lake had changed. It was no longer just water and fish. It was a world of hidden structures, glowing bubbles, and mysteries waiting to be uncovered. Liam felt a strange connection to it, as if the lake had chosen him to witness its secret. He returned to his cabin with a mix of excitement and unease. He could not sleep, thinking about the structures, the glowing bubbles, and the rumble from the main tube. He wondered what had built the tubes, why the lake was releasing gas, and what would happen if they explored too much. One thing was certain. Willow Creek Lake was no longer just a peaceful park attraction. It was a mystery, alive and ancient, and it had chosen to reveal itself to them. Liam knew that the next day would bring new discoveries, and perhaps the answers to questions no one had even thought to ask. The morning sun rose slowly over Willow Creek National Park, casting a golden glow across the partially drained lake. Ranger Liam arrived early, carrying his notebook and a thermos of coffee. The mist still hovered over the water, but today it seemed thicker, almost as if the lake itself was breathing. He shivered slightly and looked at the glowing bubbles that continued to rise from the exposed tubes. Dr. Mara and her team were already setting up their equipment. They looked serious and focused, but there was an underlying tension in the air. Liam walked toward them. "Good morning," he said, trying to sound calm. "Any changes overnight?" Dr. Mara shook her head. "The bubbles are more active near the main tube. We also detected small vibrations from deep underground. It is subtle, but definitely there. Whatever is under the lake is moving, or at least reacting to us." Liam frowned. "Do you think it is dangerous?" Dr. Mara sighed. "It is impossible to say right now. We know it is releasing gas, and the structures are clearly not natural. It could be ancient, intelligent, or something we have never encountered. I want to continue studying it, but we must be very careful." As they spoke, a vehicle arrived carrying park officials. One of them, Chief Daniels, stepped out and walked quickly toward the team. His face was pale, and his expression serious. "Dr. Mara, Ranger Liam," he said. "I have been reviewing your reports. Based on what we know so far, we are ordering a full evacuation of the park. Everyone must leave immediately. No visitors, no staff, and no unauthorized personnel. The area around the lake will be restricted until further notice." Liam felt a knot in his stomach. Evacuation? Why so suddenly? "We are being careful. No one is in danger right now." Chief Daniels shook his head. "The unknown factor is too high. The bubbles are unusual, the structures are unexplainable, and there are vibrations. Until we understand what is happening, no one can stay. We cannot take risks with human life." Dr. Mara nodded slowly. "I agree. We are close to discovering something important, but safety comes first. We should begin evacuation immediately." Liam took a deep breath and began walking through the park, notifying the visitors and staff. Most were surprised and anxious. Families packed their belongings, and campers hurried to leave. Some visitors asked questions about the lake, but Liam could only say, "It is for your safety. Please follow the instructions." By mid-morning, the park was nearly empty. Only the scientists, the divers, and essential staff remained. The lake looked peaceful on the surface, but Liam knew better. The glowing bubbles continued to rise in patterns, moving toward the center where the main tube stood tall. The water level was lower than it had ever been, revealing more of the strange structures beneath. Dr. Mara and her team worked cautiously around the exposed lake bed. They measured the gas, mapped the tubes, and recorded every observation. The vibrations from below continued, subtle but constant. Liam watched from a safe distance, feeling a mix of awe and unease. Around noon, Marco, the diver, prepared for another dive. He was going to inspect a side tube that seemed connected to the main structure. "Be careful," Liam warned. "The bubbles are more active near the main tube. Stay close to the edge and use your sensors." Marco nodded. "I will. We need to understand how these tubes are connected. The patterns of the bubbles suggest some kind of network, maybe even a system. I want to see if the gas comes from one source or several." As Marco descended, the bubbles rose around him in a glowing spiral. Liam noticed that the color of the bubbles changed as he moved deeper. Pale blue, then green, then golden. It was beautiful, but also eerie. The lake seemed alive, watching the diver carefully. Suddenly, a small tremor shook the exposed lake bed. The mist above the water swirled violently, and the bubbles moved faster, forming a tight circle around the main tube. Liam instinctively stepped back, feeling the ground vibrate beneath his feet. He looked at Dr. Mara, who was checking her instruments. "Keep calm," she said, her voice firm. "It is reacting to the dive. Whatever is down there is sensitive to movement and pressure. Do not panic. We need to monitor it carefully." Liam nodded, though his heart raced. The lake had never felt threatening before. Now it seemed powerful, aware, and unpredictable. He realized that they were not just observing the lake. They were part of it now, and the lake was responding to their presence. By mid-afternoon, the tremors had stopped, but the bubbles continued to rise in strange patterns. Some formed spirals, some formed lines, and some seemed to hover in the air briefly before falling back into the water. Liam could not understand the behavior, but he felt certain it was intelligent in some way. Chief Daniels returned in the afternoon, his face serious. "We are keeping the evacuation order in place," he said. "No one is allowed near the lake except for essential personnel and the scientific team. The area will be monitored 24 hours a day. If anything unusual happens, everyone will be removed immediately." Liam nodded. "Understood. We are already following strict safety procedures." As the sun began to set, the team stopped working for the day. They had exposed most of the structures, observed the bubbles, and recorded the vibrations. Liam walked to the edge of the lake, watching the glowing rings around the main tube. He felt a strange mix of fear and wonder. The lake had revealed its secret, but it had also shown them how little they truly understood. That night, Liam stayed in his cabin, unable to sleep. He thought about the structures, the bubbles, and the tremors. The lake was alive in a way he had never imagined. He wondered if they would ever know what had created the tubes, what was causing the bubbles, and whether the lake itself had some purpose. He thought about the evacuation. It was necessary, but it made the situation feel even more serious. The lake was no longer just a natural feature of the park. It was a mystery, a force that could not be ignored. He knew that when they returned the next day, they would be closer to the truth, and perhaps closer to danger as well. Liam looked out at the glowing water, the mist rising in soft waves. The largest tube stood tall in the center, surrounded by rings of light. It was ancient, powerful, and full of secrets. He knew that the next day would bring answers, but also risks. Whatever was beneath Willow Creek Lake was waiting, and it was aware of them. For the first time in his career, Liam realized that this park, this lake, and the strange structures beneath it were not just part of his job. They were part of something larger, something beyond human understanding. and he was not sure if he was ready to face it. The next morning, Willow Creek National Park was empty except for Ranger Liam, Dr. Mara, and the essential scientific team. The park had been fully evacuated, and the roads were quiet. Birds chirped in the distance, and the sun reflected off the remaining water in the lake. Liam stood at the edge of the exposed lakebed, looking at the strange structures that had been revealed over the past few days. The largest tube in the center of the lake dominated the view. It was taller than any tree around, hollow and dark inside. A faint glow rose from within, and the bubbles circled it in patterns that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Liam shivered. He had seen these structures for days, but today they felt alive, almost as if they were waiting. Dr. Mara approached, holding a tablet filled with measurements and images. "We have collected all the data we can safely obtain without going inside the main tube," she said. "The gas is mostly harmless outside, but we cannot predict what is inside the structure. It may contain a different type of pressure or chemical reaction that is dangerous. We must be extremely careful." Liam nodded. He looked at the glowing bubbles rising from the edges of the main tube. They changed colors constantly, shifting from pale blue to green to soft golden light. Their movement was graceful but deliberate, as if the lake itself was alive and responding to their presence. "Do you think it is natural?" Liam asked. Dr. Mara shook her head. "No. The shapes, the patterns, and the behavior of the bubbles all suggest intelligence. Someone, or something, built these tubes. Or perhaps it has learned to control the water and the gas. I cannot say for certain, but it is not ordinary." Liam felt a chill. For days, he had thought the lake was just mysterious. Now, it felt alive, watching them, protecting its secret. He walked carefully along the lakebed, stepping over thick mud and jagged rocks. The smaller tubes formed paths that led toward the main structure, creating a maze-like network. The bubbles flowed through these paths, always returning to the center. Suddenly, one of the sensors Dr. Mara had placed beeped loudly. The glow around the main tube intensified, and the bubbles formed a bright spiral that stretched upward. Liam instinctively stepped back. The lake's response was immediate and deliberate, as if it had noticed every movement. Dr. Mara examined the readings. "The gas is reacting to the vibrations of the equipment. It is almost as if the lake is alive, reacting to what we do. We must remain calm and avoid sudden movements." Liam nodded again, though his heart raced. He had spent years protecting this park, but he had never faced anything like this. The lake was no longer just water and fish. It was a world of hidden structures, glowing bubbles, and an intelligence beyond human understanding. The scientists decided to send a remote camera inside the main tube. The camera was small but strong, with lights to illuminate the darkness. Liam watched the feed on a large screen. As the camera moved deeper into the tube, the inside walls glowed faintly. Strange symbols appeared on the rocks, carved or etched into the surface. Liam could not recognize them. They were intricate, geometric, and precise, arranged in repeating patterns. "This is incredible," Dr. Mara whispered. "These symbols are intentional. Someone, or something, left messages or instructions here. We do not know what they mean, but they are clearly organized." Liam leaned closer to the screen. The tube curved downward and opened into a larger chamber. The bubbles floated through it, illuminating the space with soft light. Shadows moved in the corners, almost as if something unseen was watching. Liam felt a shiver. The lake had been hiding this secret for centuries, and now it was revealing it to them slowly, carefully, as if testing their intentions. Hours passed as they studied the footage and monitored the bubbles. Liam could not take his eyes off the main tube. He realized that this lake was not just a natural feature. It was alive, ancient, and intelligent. It had waited for someone curious and cautious to uncover its secret. He felt honored and fearful at the same time. As evening approached, a soft rumble came from deep within the main tube. The bubbles rose faster, forming rings that floated above the water. The glow became brighter, filling the misty air with soft light. Liam felt the vibration through his feet, subtle but powerful. It was as if the lake was breathing, alive and aware. Dr. Mara examined her instruments. The energy is stable for now. Whatever is below is reacting to our presence. We cannot enter the tube safely, but we have seen enough to know that it is extraordinary. Liam stepped closer to the water's edge. He stared at the glowing spiral of bubbles around the main tube. He could not explain the feeling in his chest, a mix of fear, awe, and curiosity. The lake had waited for centuries, and now it had revealed a glimpse of its secret to them. Suddenly, a brighter flash of light shot from the center of the tube. The bubbles rose in a perfect spiral and then disappeared into the mist. Liam blinked, unsure what he had seen. The lake was calm again, the structures still exposed, but he felt certain something had changed. The lake had made its presence known, reminding them that it was alive, powerful, and mysterious. Dr. Mara turned to him. Liam, we must respect the lake. We have learned a lot, but there are limits. We cannot rush into the unknown. Whatever is down there, it will reveal itself in its own time. Liam nodded. He realized that the lake had chosen them to witness its secret carefully. They had uncovered a small part of its mystery, but there was much more hidden beneath the water. It was not just a lake, it was an ancient, intelligent world that had waited for centuries for the right people to find it. As night fell, Liam stood alone by the lake. The mist swirled around the glowing structures, and the bubbles continued to rise faintly, casting soft light across the exposed lakebed. The park was quiet, the air filled with a sense of calm and wonder. He felt a connection to the lake that he could not explain. The lake had changed his understanding of the world. It was no longer just a place to protect or patrol. It was a living, breathing mystery, ancient and intelligent, full of secrets waiting to be discovered. Liam knew that this was only the beginning. The lake had shown them part of its secret, but the full story remained hidden beneath the water. As he walked back to his cabin, he looked one last time at the glowing bubbles and the towering tube. The lake was alive, ancient, and patient. It had waited centuries, and it would wait longer if it had to. Liam knew that someday humans might understand more, but for now, the lake would keep its deepest secrets safe, revealing them only to those who approached with care, curiosity, and respect. And as the moon rose above Willow Creek National Park, the glowing bubbles reflected on the remaining water, softly reminding Liam and Dr. Mara that some mysteries were meant to inspire wonder, awe, and caution. The lake was not just water. It was life, history, and intelligence in its purest, most mysterious form.